Chapter 2. What the hell was that? The other sides avoided looking up at Deceit, who was bristling with anger. Virgil cradled Patton in his arms, the fatherly side drawing in shallow breaths and eyes flickering under closed eyelids. If one of you does not answer me, I swear to everything, I will— It was me! Roman blurted out, jumping to his feet and staring at the floor. He squeezed his eyes shut, bracing himself. I brought them. Deceit hissed out a breath through his teeth, pinching the bridge of his nose with his right hand. Why am I not surprised? Roman, what about bringing Patton to my room seemed like a good idea to you? And Logan. Deceit glared down at the logical side, who was still splayed out on the floor. You're supposed to be logic. Why didn't you talk him out of this? I tried, but don't lie to me. Logan looked up at him, fidgeting with his glasses. What? You didn't try to convince anyone. Deceit, get to the point. What happened? Why did your room affect everyone like this? Virgil shouted at him, his anxiety bubbling over from when he kept failing to shake Patton awake. Why won't Patton wake up? Because he's trying to fight up the corruption my room caused. My room is no different than yours, Virgil, and the genius prince here decided it would be a great idea to bring Thomas's moral compass into my domain. My room never made anyone pass out. That doesn't mean it can't do permanent damage. Deceit, please, what's going to happen to Patton? Logan asked, slowly standing up. Deceit took a breath and pulled his glove back on, trying to calm himself down. Well, if you're lucky, I got him out in time for there to be no permanent change. But you brought Thomas's morality into my room, which amplifies selfish desires. Considering how Thomas prides himself on being selfless to a fault, I'm sure you're smart enough to figure out what might happen if I didn't. Deceit sneered, and Logan's eyes widened. Roman swallowed hard. You're saying Patton might become more selfish? Deceit clapped slowly, patronizing. Very good. But why just Patton? Why not the rest of us? Roman asked, a hand over his chest. None of the others had fainted, and even now he couldn't feel any residual energy that had overwhelmed him in Deceit's room. The lying side rolled his eyes. Because the two of you are already inherently more likely to accept that part of my influence than Patton is, and Virgil didn't set foot in my room for more than 30 seconds. Then came a soft groan from the side in Virgil's arms, and Patton slowly blinked himself awake. Virgil watched as a small fleck of gold shifted in his eye before disappearing as Patton rubbed at them. What happened? Oh, thank God, Virgil exclaimed, hugging Patton tightly. Patton glanced blearily around the room at the others' concerned faces that had gathered around him. How did we— Back in the Commons, I thought— Patton mumbled, unable to properly finish his sentences or think clearly. Logan put a concerned hand on his shoulder, but was unceremoniously shoved aside by Deceit, who knelt in front of Patton and grabbed both of his shoulders firmly. Hold still, Deceit growled as Patton instinctively tried to jerk away. Deceit grabbed Patton's chin and held his head still, studying his eyes for a long moment before letting go with a sigh. He should be fine, but never do that again, Deceit scolded, turning to Roman and glaring. Patton blinked and reached out to brush his fingertips faintly against the deep scratches running down the human side of Deceit's face. The lying side looked back and grabbed Patton's hand, pulling it away from his face. Yeah, you've got some claws on you, Pops. Who would have thought? Deceit smirked at the slow surprise that Patton's face morphed into. The kind-hearted Patton, the source of another scar on my face. How ironic. I didn't mean to. Deceit, I'm so sorry. Don't say it, Deceit glared, standing up and towering over Patton. It cast a shadow over his face, leaving his golden eye shining. Don't you dare say those words to me unless you actually mean it. He turned to Logan then, holding out an expectant hand and plastering a smile on his face. Now, if you don't mind, that belongs to me. Deceit motioned to the glowing snake curled gently around Logan's shoulders. Logan nodded quickly, unwrapping it from its perch and handing it over. The snake slithered up Deceit's arm and curled onto his shoulder. It watched the rest of the sides with curious eyes, tongue flicking. Deceit turned away from them and started to sink out when he felt a hand tightly grasp his wrist. Deceit, wait! He rolled his eyes, turning back and not even attempting to hide his annoyance now. What can I help you with, Roman? Look, it's my fault we got into this mess, and I'm so sorry for causing all of it, but I went to your room in the first place to ask you something. Deceit sighed, just wanting to leave and not have to deal with any more shenanigans from these four. Go ahead, he droned, clearly wanting him to do anything but. Roman paused, but he drew up all of his courage and smiled widely. We have movie nights here every Friday. I wanted to invite you to join us. Deceit stared at him for a moment in disbelief, though he carefully schooled his features to hide it. Roman was telling the truth, he knew, but he still didn't believe it. He didn't want to get his hopes up. Ask me again after I fix the damage you caused, and then maybe you'll think of a way to make it up to me that doesn't involve spending time with people who won't even pretend to tolerate my presence. Then he was gone, and Roman was left standing there with his hand hovering in the air and 3 pairs of eyes staring at him in various levels of disbelief. What the hell, Roman? Virgil cried, leaving Patton sitting by himself and stomping over to Roman, grabbing his sash and jerking him close. Why the hell did you— I told you that was my plan in the beginning. We're going to spend some time with Deceit and get to know him. He's a part of Thomas, just like us. Roman felt confident about this, more confident than he'd felt about anything in a long time. He puffed his chest out and stared back at Virgil, unwavering. Virgil's eyes were wide with fear and anger, and his fist clenched tighter as Roman spoke. He wanted to tell him about Deceit, about who he was, but he couldn't. Roman read his mind. I don't know what your history is with him, and I don't care. But I do care about helping Thomas, and avoiding everything that makes him scared or uncomfortable is the most boring way to live. We can't avoid him forever just because you don't like him, Anxiety. Virgil froze, sucking in a breath as he stepped back from Roman like he'd been burned. Roman immediately regretted it. Virgil, I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. You can have your movie night with Deceit. I don't care. But I will not be a part of it. And then he was gone as well, leaving the 3 light sides in the common room. Roman— The creative side sighed, glancing at Patton, who was finally in control of himself. I know, Pops. I'll apologize to him later. Well, yes, you need to do that, but are you sure about this? Roman knew he meant Deceit. He took a quick glance at Logan, who had his hands clasped behind his back and face neutral, and Roman made up his mind. I know you and Virgil don't like him, but Thomas wants to get to know that side of himself and understand him. And he can't do that if we don't make an effort to include him. He was rather proud of himself for keeping his voice under control when he wanted to break down under Patton's intense, disapproving stare. Patton, you disapprove of this. Why? Logan asked calmly, and Patton stood, gesturing wildly. Because he's Deceit! He lies, and he just wants Thomas to lie. Are you certain of that? Of course! He's Deceit, and you are morality. But you also control many of Thomas's emotions, as well as many other functions. Roman and I are the same way, and we know Virgil has more to him than he first appears. Why should we believe that Deceit is any different? Because you're letting your emotions dictate your actions. But you have no solid proof that Deceit is any different than the rest of us. He has told us himself that he only wants the best for Thomas. Regardless of his methods, that should be taken into account. Stop! Patton screamed, covering his ears with his fingers curling. He glared at Logan, and it was enough for both of them to take a step back. I don't want to hear it. He's done nothing but try to turn Thomas against me, and I won't let that happen. Patton— Roman reached out, but Patton sunk out just before he could say anything else. The prince ran his fingers through his hair, trying to keep from letting the lump in his throat grow. Well, that could have gone better. Logan spoke slowly, and Roman felt his knees give out from beneath him. I just wanted to help. Now they hate me. Logan didn't know what to say, and so he just sat down silently next to Roman, offering him a shoulder when Roman couldn't hold his tears in anymore.